Many thanks for joining us on another wonderful, exciting, and educating program titled Regnum Continuous Legal Education. So this is a program that avails you the moment to learn. You learn about everything that has to do with law principles and how to protect yourself in your society or environment. I am Peace Smith, reaching out to you on Starcross Television. So this is a program we shoot every Friday. Yeah, every Friday on every week. So you have to make sure that you pick a date, you keep a date with us, mark your calendar every Friday by 7 p.m. You stay tuned because you have to, learn. Remember, it is said knowledge is powerful. Knowledge is power. When you have knowledge, that is one thing that someone cannot take away from you. So make sure that in your daily life, you continue to learn. Greetings to you once again, and many thanks for joining us on the Regnum Continuous Legal Education. And of course, in this episode, we have a very dicey and juicy topic. Someone would say, yeah, this is a topic we look at every day, but trust me, in this episode, we are going to be dissecting this particular topic. And of course, to look at the legal backings that support this very topic. So make sure you grab a pen, you grab a paper. I have mine here, as you can see. So make sure you grab yours, stay glued to your TV set. If you're a law student, or not just a law student, or an individual or business person, whoever you are, this is a program that you have to learn. You have to build your knowledge, you have to build yourself. So stay glued. After this short break, I will be introducing my topic and of course my resource person for this episode. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In case you are just tuning in, this is the program Regnum Continuous Legal Education. Yes, let's start by knowing how your day actually went. I hope you're already spending your June very well. To all the June celebrants, today is the 6th day in the month of June. So for all those who have been celebrating their birthdays or birthdays till this day, I want to say happy birthday to you and congratulations for making it another year in your life. And make sure you continue to do what is right, because every year that is added to us is for an opportunity, to serve humanity and to serve God. So congratulations to you once again. So welcome back. This is the program Regnum Continuous Legal Education. And of course, in this episode, on this episode, we will be looking at the biblical and legal interpretation of love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourselves. I know someone will be saying, oh, this is a common topic, or this is a common sentence we keep hearing and all of that. But today, we are going to be learning about the legal frameworks that has to actually do with, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Some other time we have always been looking at the biblical aspect of it. So today we will be looking at the biblical and legal interpretation of love your neighbor as you love yourself. All right, so joining us on this episode, I have brother Kenneth Itoro Abasi. Good to have you here once more, sir. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
I can see it's all showing on you. Yes. Okay, you're welcome. So now let's start with, who is your neighbor? Let's understand those terms before we go ahead to, looking at the topic in depthly. Who is your neighbor?
Well, first and foremost, I have to welcome our guests. Those who are going to be watching us. Wherever you are, I want you to pay attention, because like the presenter has said, we are going to be looking at both the legal and the biblical aspect of whatever we are going to discuss concerning the topic. First and foremost, before we continue, I want us to realize that everything we are going to discuss today is going to be based on a particular legal maxim, okay, which I'm going to drop before we even start looking at them. And that Latin maxim, legal Latinic maxim, okay, is sic utere tuo ut alienum non ledis.
Okay, what does that imply?
Which means, so do your own thing in a way and manner as not to injure your neighbor.
Wow, okay.
So everything we are going to discuss today will be based on that Latinate maxim. Sic jutere tuo ut alienum non ledis. Now coming to who is your neighbor. Biblically, who is your neighbor transcends proximity, it transcends religion, it transcends race. Biblically, as expounded by Jesus Christ in Luke chapter 10, verse 29 to 37, which is the parable of the Good Samaritan. Let's use that.
Okay.
We will look at some other. Who is your neighbor refers to anybody that needs your help, no matter the distance, provided you have the ability to offer help. That person is your neighbor.
Okay.
And if we want to look at the international community, if we want to use the international community as an example, you will realize that at a point there were some international institutions that were formed, and one of them is the Medicine Sans Frontiers, which is Doctors Without Borders, and then we have the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. These bodies were formed in order to reach out on what I will call international protection of human rights, international assistance to displaced persons, international assistance to refugees, international assistance to people that were in war-torn zones. If you look at those two bodies, they are a very good example of the international community trying to be the neighbor to everybody on planet Earth, no matter the distance.
Okay.
So, biblically, that is your neighbor. A man was traveling from Jericho to Jerusalem, and he saw somebody lying down. And that portion of the Bible records it that a priest passed by, Pharisees passed by, Sadducees, but nobody could say, oh, that is a wounded man. But the Good Samaritan came along and saw that this man is wounded and needs help. That was a very comprehensive example by our Lord Jesus Christ of who is your neighbor, biblically. Now, when it comes to legally, legally, who is your neighbor is anybody that can be affected by your action. Anybody that your action can cause injury to, legally, is your neighbor. And if I want to give you a good example is, okay, let me use the living breath of life that we just celebrated, that Brother of Cross and Star just celebrated. And you realize that so many people came in from London, came in from America, came in from all parts of the world, Germany and you name it. Now let's assume that a woman is down the road at the Kaika and is frying akara. And then the man that came in from New Zealand said, what's this? They say, oh, it's akara. So I would like to have a taste of it. By buying that akara, that man has now become the neighbor of the woman that is producing that akara. Because if at the end of the day, that akara is on an unwholesome food, not properly produced, it might end up injuring
the man
from New Zealand.
Okay.
Look at the distance. The man is living in New Zealand. He came in for a program in Nigeria, and then he's bought akara by the roadside, which turns out to be unwholesomely produced. Okay. And then it has affected the man. Okay. You understand? That man has a right of action. Okay. Against as we going down, you will see how it unfolds. Okay. But legally, it is
So as long as your actions can actually cause injury
or
to another person,
to some other person,
okay,
that person that has been injured is seen in law
as your neighbor, not because, oh, you are staying close to this person,
no,
or maybe you have to offer help to this person,
okay,
or show some kindness to this person.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at the issue. Let's look at the issue of enemies. Maybe you have actually identified that this person is your enemy. So can that actually be also classified as a neighbor? I mean, in the legal backings.
No, an enemy does not have any duty with any person, no matter how close.
Okay,
provided his action, it is his action. Okay, let's look at the situation where the man goes to his business. In the morning, he gets up, he doesn't tell the man good morning, he goes to his business. It doesn't cause any injury. Biblically, it does. You understand? But legally, it doesn't.
Does not. Oh, okay.
The man gets up, takes his bath, goes to his business, come back, maybe morally, we are now looking at morality now. The man's son falls from an upstairs and he looked, oh, I beg, let me be going.
Wow.
You understand? He has not committed any offense. He has not, his action has not injured
the person. Okay.
That's
that
his
child.
enemy.
Oh, okay.
He has not injured him.
Okay.
You understand? So as far as law is concerned, the man has not committed, but morally or biblically, like we looked at in Luke chapter 10, verse 29 to 37, he has committed a moral offense.
Oh.
But legally, he has not committed any
Okay,
offense.
I think this is a conversation that we'll get to understand better because we are just, starting. So this is to tell a brother or your brother, your sister, that Regnum Continuous Legal Education that we have started. So make sure you stay very glued to your TV sets. As you can see, the conversation is going to be a lot interesting and fun. So make sure you start sending in your comments, you start sending in your calls can start coming in. Whatever you do not understand, we have a legal practitioner here to do justice to that. All right, thank you so much, sir, for the explanation on who your neighbor is. So you have said that as long as whatever you're doing causes injury to another person, that person is your neighbor. So before we can get into that deeply, let's also understand what is love.
Okay, love is a deep personal affection. I think this is where the intersection begins. Love is a deep personal affection from a person to another.
Okay.
And now, if you want to look at it from the biblical standpoint, love is what we call agape. That is the kind of selfless, sacrificial relationship, not based on emotion. For the human being, the relationship is based on emotion. I love you, and everything you do becomes a problem to me, provided it doesn't, augur well with my own belief and standards. You understand?
Okay.
Like the one we have between husband and wife, and or kind of relation. But when it comes to the kind of love we are looking at here, we are looking at the agape kind of love that Jesus Christ had for us.
So does law as well understand that, or is there also a different meaning of law when it comes to the legal aspects?
When it comes to the legal aspect, love remains love.
Okay.
There is no...
I think there is, there would be some controversy in this aspect.
There is no controversy.
Okay.
Love stands in its place. You understand? As in, your action will enjoy your neighbor, so you desist from doing it. Everything you try to do, like we're giving the example of the akara, that the woman made sure that, look, I prepared this thing to the standard that everybody can take and be happy. So it is love. When it comes to law, remains in its position.
Okay, now
love is even a foundation for justice.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
you have said something. It's a foundation for justice. Now let's get to the point where you said a neighbor. Okay, let's consider that there were two neighbors and one is an enemy. Maybe they're both enemies. Let's put it that way. Maybe they've been quarreling or disagreeing over some things, and now one of the neighbors passing by, he saw one of the neighbor's child about being harmed. at that moment of the process. And now maybe this issue is being taken to law. And you said laws, the definition for love, both biblically and in the law aspect of law, is the same. So how will they judge this case now? Because you're saying that at that point, the neighbor has not faulted any maybe in any aspect or concept of neighborhood
morally,
in that
yeah,
aspect.
morally, yes, he has not.
Okay, so let's understand that better.
Where you are going to now, you are looking at omission. You are looking at omission to act.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to omission to act, it is a moral issue. You understand? But provided the omission to act does not translate to a harm. Let's give an example. Let's assume that it's the man that off the light. Okay. You get the point now? Let's assume that it was the man that is supposed to on the light.
And he did not?
Yes, the other way around.
Okay.
It's the man that's supposed to on the light by 6 or 7 p.m. And he saw the person coming. You understand? Maybe he's supposed to on the light once they realize 7 o'clock and people are returning back to their abode. And the man refused to. That is an omission to act.
Wow.
That can still fall under negligence. Because it was his duty to on the light.
Okay.
But in this case, we are looking at a situation that it is not the man's duty to on the light.
And it's not his duty to protect the child.
And it's not his duty to protect the child.
But as a neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself. He has to do whatever it takes to prepare to protect
Morally,
the life of that child. Okay.
Morally, he has committed an offense. But legally, he cannot be convicted in a court of law for standing by. We call it the offense of standing by. Okay. For standing by and a neighbor's child is harmed without doing anything to help.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think we'll still have to settle that course as we go on. All right. Thank you so much, sir. That was beautiful. Now let's look at some principles that still concerns neighbor. You know, so now let's look at the principles as taught by the Bible in terms of love yourself or love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Let us start with sacrifice.
Okay.
Jesus Christ was willing to lay down his life. If you go to John chapter 1 John chapter 3 verse 16, you will see that Jesus Christ was ready to, because you could remember that last when we discussed, I said that in Genesis chapter 6, God was fed up with man. He told the family of God that, look, let's do away with anything man, we have had enough. It was Jesus Christ that kept believing that man will be a better being, a useful being, and kept convincing the Father and was ready to sacrifice. Now, love also demands, is action oriented. It's not words. It's not I love you. What have you been able to do? Let us look like, for instance, our mother. The woman is sitting by the roadside. She's selling akara. But she vows, my daughter, my son must graduate. And all the good things of life she will have gotten as a result of selling that akara, she forgoes them just to ensure that we go to school. That is the kind of love we are talking about. Okay. So it is action-oriented, not words. Okay. And then love is patience and kindness. If you go down the Bible, you will see that love is forgiving. If there is no forgiveness, even our salvation is a condition. There is a condition of forgiveness for our salvation. True. If you look at Matthew chapter 6 verse 12, he said, forgive us our trespasses is a condition. And that is why anybody who doesn't forgive in this life, just forget the kingdom of God, you cannot. Because Matthew 6:12 is very clear. Okay. He said, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them or those that trespass against us. It is a condition. So
love there is a condition.
It's a condition. Okay. Now if you go to Mark 11:24-26, it says, if you forgive, then your heavenly Father who is in heaven will now look down on you and also forgive you your sin. And now when Jesus came, he tried to marry those provisions with a man that owed the king 100,000 pieces of money. And then when the king asked him, where is my money? He said, my king, I don't have. It's okay, I forgive you. When he went out, somebody was owing him 2 pieces of the same money. And he said, today, hey, you must give me my money. If you had given me that 2 pieces of money, at least I would have had the one to give to the king. You were the reason why the king embarrassed me. If you go read down Genesis 18, you will find out that They went back, the people that saw his action went back to the king. See the man you just forgave 100,000 pieces of money. Jesus gave that illustration himself. He said, he called him back and said, you are a wicked servant, and because of that I can never forgive you. So he sent him the way unforgiving people should be. So anybody in this world, whether you are a Christian, you don't believe in Christianity, but you don't have forgiveness in you, just leave kingdom of God apart. You are not for it. Yes. Now,
Okay.
love is not self-seeking. It thinks about other people. Yes. That is one thing you have to know about love. Once a person, thinks about other people like Jesus did, if you go to John 15 verse 13, he says, there is no greater love than this, than for a man to lay down his life for his friends. Love is compassion. You understand? And if you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, you will see it lists, what love is and what love is not. And then in verse 8 of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, he makes it very clear that all these other things will fail. Speaking in tongues will fail. Prophecy will fail. But that what will continue to remain untouched is love, and that love never fails.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. So that is the biblical,
That's the biblical yes,
understanding
yes,
of
yes.
love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now let's relate all these principles to that of the legal principles or teachings of the legal framework. Now, in the issue, because you talked about the issue of negligence while you were trying to say something. Now let's look at it emphatically. The issue of negligence, how does it relate, or how is it expounded by or expanded by Dunnock and Stevenson? So how does, what do both of them say when it comes to negligence under love your neighbor as you love yourself?
Sic utere tuo ut alienum.
The same phrase, okay.
It says, it's very simple, that you should use your property in such a way and manner as not to injure your neighbor. Now, when it comes to negligence, negligence is an established, it was established in the case of Dunnock and Stevenson, 1932, that's the citation, 1932 appeal cases, 567.
Okay.
Alternative citation is UK House of Lords at page 100. Still, alternative citation again is 1932 All European Report at page 1. Now, in that case, Lord Etiquette propounded the neighbor principle. He was the one that propounded the neighbor principle in that case of Dunnock and Stevenson. That says that you should do whatever you want to do in such a way and manner as not to injure your neighbor, thereby establishing a duty of care situation. Now, what is negligence? Negligence simply means that there is an established duty of care, that the defendant has breached that duty of care, and as a result, the plaintiff has suffered damage.
Okay.
That is all what negligence is trying to talk about.
Okay.
And now, if you look at that definition, there is an established duty of care. The man is a medical doctor. He's supposed to conduct a surgery on his patient. We like using that because that one, by the time he make a mistake, the man goes to meet his creator. So there is no other negligence greater than that. Now, what are the tests to establish that there was a duty of care? The man has presented himself in the hospital. He has collected a form. He has filled, bought his own card. So a contract is established. A duty of care has been established equally at that point. Now, there is a foreseeability test. The foreseeability test is that harm that has happened to that man, was it reasonable, foreseeable in the circumstances? Then there is also the test of proximity. Is there a proximity? Is there a proximal cause that harm has occurred to that man? Okay. Now, by the time you put these two tests side by side, was it reasonably foreseeable that by conducting surgery on the man, that if he was not properly sewn, or if a scissors was left in his
Yes.
system, that could lead to bleeding, or that could lead to some other serious medical condition. You understand?
Very well.
So we are now looking at that neighborhood principle between that medical doctor and that patient.
Okay.
Now, what about the driver? He's driving on the road. Let's assume that it was still during the living breath of life. And then
No,
you're
we
driving-
can. Let's use another example.
Okay. Okay. Let's assume that the man is driving at the highway. It's still the same thing. And a lot of people were crossing. And the man was driving at a speed, let's assume is higher than what is specified for that street. You understand? Now you will see the foreseeability test coming into play. You will see the proximal cause test equally coming into play. Proximal, the foreseeability, somebody will cross the road. Proximal cause test, overspeeding.
Overspeeding. Okay.
Has the person suffered damage, the man has been knocked down. So by the time you bring the three of these together, you will find out that the man has been negligent.
Okay.
But now
Neglected.
negligent.
Okay.
And now let's look at the situation where this other person was crossing the road, and then he now stopped in the middle of the road because a phone call came into his phone, and he wanted to see who was calling him. You will now find out that if that is equally established, we will now be talking about contributory negligence.
Okay,
The
from the
normally-
victim aspect now.
Yes, from
Okay,
from
okay.
the victim now.
Okay.
He was supposed to have taken due caution to cross the road, but he stood in the middle of that road equally to pick out the phone from his pocket to see who was calling him. And in the course of that, this other person now hit him.
Okay.
The man was driving above speed. This man was looking at the phone. So we can now look at
The proximity.
the proximity, what
Test.
we call contributory negligence.
Negligence.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's beautiful. Thank you. So still on the Davidson, the Dunnock and Stevenson law. Now let's look at the issue of negligent misstatement.
Yeah, when it comes to negligent misstatement, I would like us to start it biblically. Now, biblically, if you go to Matthew chapter 12, verse 35 to 37, you will see that the Bible is very clear. It said that a good man, out of the goodness of his heart, will bring edifying words. But the other man, evil man, will bring words that condemn. If you go, you see, and then if you go to 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 9 to 10, it says that he that will love life and to see good days, you have to bridle your tongue. I think we spoke about this. And now, in the law, there is liability for negligent misstatement. Because if we want to look at the dictum of Lord Pierce, I would like us to read the dictum of Lord Pierce.
Okay.
In Headley Bind, the locus classicus for negligent misstatement is actually Candler versus Crane Christmas and Co. Limited. Citation is 1951, 2 King's Bench.
Okay.
And then Headley Bang against Heller and Partners. I think that citation is 1964 appeal cases. If you look at those two cases, they established the fact that, in fact,
What was the two cases all about? Can you
it's
decipher?
about giving an information that leads the other person to rely on that information to take a decision.
A false information?
It might be false.
Okay.
It might be unchecked out.
Okay.
You were not sure of the information. You didn't actually...
How about the issue of rumor?
Or you took a rumor.
Oh, okay.
Or you didn't actually check out the authenticity of that information. And then you gave that information out. And that other person, relying on that information, took a decision which turns out to bring losses to him. That is negligent misstatement. Now, let us see what Lord Pierce, in Headley Bind's case, says. He had advised caution with respect to liability for words when he stated as follows: the reason for some divergence between the law of negligence, misstatement is equally negligent. It's just that this one has been created into another portfolio because of the danger. He said, and that of negligence in acts is clear. Negligence in words creates problems different from those of negligence in acts. Words are more volatile than deeds. They travel fast and far afield. they are used without being expended. For instance, an information you gave about me, that man is a thief. It will continue to be used, but an action will have expired.
Yeah.
But somebody, they say that man
yes,
is a thief.
it travels very fast.
Very fast. Now they are used without being expended and take effect in combination with innumerable facts and other words. Yet they are dangerous and can cause vast damage. If the mere hearing or reading of words are held to create proximity, there might be no limit to the persons to whom the speaker or writer could be liable. You remember when we were talking about cyberbullying and I said it that once that information has gone to the
Public
internet space, that it is universally observed and watched, and it is very difficult for you to
take it back. True.
So in negligent misstatement, in fact, in Hedley Bind's case, what simply happened is that the man was a media practitioner, advertiser. He wanted to give somebody a reference. So he now asked the bankers, Heller and partners, to look for the reference. So they brought the reference, but with a disclaimer. They brought the reference with a disclaimer that they will not be liable
to whatever
is the outcome
of
their decision to embark on that reference. So they now invested, and the investment led to losses. They went to court. The only thing that helped the bankers was that disclaimer
that was given, issued out.
That was issued in the reference, and they are not. That means they still expected Hedley Bind to take due diligence and caution to find out that those references were true. And that is why I would tell everybody the world over. They have told you wicked things about the man, they have told you bad things about the person. Take a little time to find out the truth. Because it was still in this program, when last we met, that I tried to distinguish between Obu in the Bibios, which is crayfish, and Obu in the native of our father, that is the Biakman language, which is conqueror. The two of them are not the same, but the pronunciation may be the same. So why not take time to check out the information, confirm that information before you act on it, in order that you not suffer losses, and then the provisions of Matthew chapter 12, verse 35 to 37 will not catch up with you.
Okay, yes. Thank you so much, sir. That's quite educative. Now I'll have to bring you back. Let's go back to the negligence aspect, because you cited scenarios where we did not look at the should I say the disciplinary approach to those scenarios. For example, you talked about maybe someone on a speed lane and then applies speed above the speed level that was given, and then there's someone who maybe a pedestrian, a person who happens to apply that road all the time. Maybe the person was just crossing at that process and maybe being knocked down. So now you also you have, in that scenario, you have talked about feasibility law. Am I correct? Test. Okay, feasibility test. You have also talked about the proximal cause test. Yes, and of course it was 3 you made mention of. So now in such scenarios, what punishment can be applied to? Let's just say maybe the person or the driver is found guilty. What punishment is allocated to such a person? And of course, to this your second explanation on negligent misstatement, what punishment is given to such people? Let's look at
when we come to that, but then let me at the periphery. What is law? Is, if you look at the definition of law by John Austin, it says that it comes from a particular superior to a political inferior, and that is always punishment for a breach.
Okay.
That is what John Austin calls
law.
Though the jurist definition of law is different. When the home says that they are the prophecies of what the courts will do or say, and nothing more pretentious. But then let us look at it from John Austin's perspective of what law is. There is always a punishment for a breach.
Sure.
Now let's assume that there is a road traffic law, which I'm sure there is. There is a road traffic law. And then the road traffic law says that anybody that knocks down a person from behind. You know, you are behind. You, the driver, you are behind. You are expected to have seen that person was about crossing. And now supposing they
You know, what if the person just ran immediately? You know, there's some persons like that.
That is why I said
do not obey the road
that is why I
sign.
said, yeah, that's why I said contributory.
Yeah.
So I was coming.
Yes.
Now, if they said is 5 years imprisonment, for instance, the road traffic law specifies that. And the man can establish that whatever happened was either an act of God or, you know, we don't like we normally say a skit by itself is neutral.
Okay.
I said an act of God or a contributory negligence on the part of that other person. You know, you were just too close to where that happened. Now let's assume that such a defense is put, and then the sentence can be commuted.
Okay.
To maybe a fine. Let's assume.
Okay.
The man has been convicted, but then it's paying a fine. The fine will include, okay, treat the man. For instance, if the man did it. Now, this very man also equally has an action in civil law that he can sue him for injuries resulting from the accident. So, in every society, you understand, there is always the decision in Smith and Selwyn that says that every injury or action can be held both in the criminal and in the civil situation.
Okay.
So it's either the man will now come and take him to court for injuries that he sustained during the accident, or he submits himself to the criminal law and he is convicted.
Okay.
But what normally happens is that if both cases can go on simultaneously, the man can equally still pay the fine in the criminal law and still be liable to damages in civil.
Wow, the driver in question. Okay, all right. So that of the negligent misstatement, how does punishment come to play in that aspect? Or what's the disciplinary measures for that?
It's still compensation, or what we call restitution in integrum.
Okay.
There is the restitution in integrum. Okay, the man made losses, financial losses. And we are looking at 500 million naira. We are looking at $10,000. We are looking at 50,000 pounds. The law can compel the maker of the negligence statement to restitute